one in what will potentially be a lengthy set of videos making fun of Final Fantasy X. Now you may be asking, was Final Fantasy X my least favorite of them all? No, honestly it wasn't, but it was the point in the series where I finally realized the franchise I loved as a child was dead. 8 wasn't enough for me, I was a slow learner, it took till 10 for me to finally figure this out. Gone were the storylines I actually liked, where you and a bunch of your friends set out to save the world by using the power stored in shiny rocks. In was the plotline where you controlled a highly incompetent guy trying desperately and failing most of the time to win the heart of a woman, and the whole save the world angle was just basically written in as an excuse to throw the two of them together. Gone were likable characters that you actually cared about and wanted to see what happened to them, and In were characters that you'd rather see die in a fire than succeed at their mission, and when the whole game is them trying to succeed at their mission, it makes for a fairly poor game. But enough talking about it, let me show you. Let us start the review. Welcome to the opening cutscene of Final Fantasy X. We're shown a pile of weapons and a blitzball, just sitting by themselves in the middle of nowhere. No, it doesn't make any sense, and no, it's never going to be explained. It's a trend in this game to just throw big piles of nonsense at you and hope that you're so overwhelmed by it that you never think to notice that it doesn't make any sense. And the whole game is either made up of that or something like this, where nothing happens. I mean, look at it, it's just 7 people sitting around a campfire. And I was going to show this whole cutscene, but it's just way too long and there's other things I need to discuss. But something real quick I do want to talk about. Tidus' voice actor is horrible. It's so bad I'm amazed that Square didn't ditch the whole voice acting gimmick after this game. Listen to it.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
Now even if you like this game, you have to admit, that is just bad. And notice Tidus said listen to my story. Yeah, this is just his story, not also the story of the 6 other people who journeyed with him through this whole game. It turns out Tidus is really just a self-absorbed person, and it's made apparent right from the start, where the opening scene is him greeting a bunch of fans who drool all over him. Yeah, and I'm sure Tidus doesn't embellish on this at all. And in case you haven't gotten sick of it too, we've also got a creepy kid cliche in this game. That's right, kids, it's not just for crappy horror films anymore. Anyways, the game lets us name this guy something else, ensuring that his name is never going to be voice acted. And we really need to think of something more appropriate, you know? I mean, let's see. He spends this whole game crying, trying not to cry, or remembering past crying, so we'll just name him Crybaby. You know, I got the novelty of naming characters before voice acting. It made you feel, you know, like you were closer to the character because he was a name that you gave him. But in a fully voice-acted game, it just gets ridiculous. Do you honestly expect me to believe that people would really go the whole game and never speak Tidus' name? Now, you know, now that I think about it, though, I really should be thankful that his name's ever going to be voice-acted. It's going to save me from the headache of what usually goes on in these Japanese anime and games between the main character and their love interest. That stuff just drives me nuts. But after the naming process, Tidus attempts to leave for his game when these little brats demands that he teaches them how to play blitzball. What's that, little street urchins? You want me to teach you how to kick around the ball? Sure, I can drop a championship game for that. You know, I say that sarcastically, but Tidus actually considers doing it until the creepy kid from earlier just appears out of nowhere and tells him to stop being such a pushover. And Tidus is enough of a pushover, luckily, to listen to the kid and decides that maybe he should show up for that game. And Tidus doesn't pause for a second at the appearance of a kid that only he can see and hear. Does anyone else find that a little odd? I'll get back to that for later, but for now, it's time for the CG movie. For those of you looking forward to blitzball footage, sorry, but that's going to be saved for a later video. I will, however, show you the rest of the movie. Here, we're shown Auron for the first time, the biggest badass of the game. He lets you know it right away by toasting to a world-destroying monster from the ledge of a high-rise.
Gravity, apocalyptic monsters, they got nothing on Auron. This guy wears his sunglasses at night. The monster shares some of my hatred of Tidus and immediately tries to shoot him with laser beams. He sadly has very poor aim and misses Tidus completely, although he does take out a few dozen surrounding buildings instead. Oh yeah, that's just great timing for those early warning sirens to come along. Only half the city's destroyed. Are you sure things are bad enough to actually alert people? Who knew that spending the city's budget on anti-gravity machines to play a simple water sport instead of on an effective early warning system would come back and bite these people on the ass? Now, despite the monster's very poor aim, the stadium still gets demolished and Tidus falls from the blitzball sphere and gets knocked unconscious. Now, this is pretty much his default state for the first few hours of the game. In fact, he spends so much time unconscious, I think he suffers serious brain damage. At least that's the only thing I can come up with to explain how stupid this guy acts for the entire game. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, don't pick on Tidus. He's a pretty bright guy. Well, you want proof to my claims of his stupidity? The court submits Exhibit A. First off, Tidus decides to make his escape from the monster in the opposite direction that everyone's running. That seems like a real great idea, right? But in doing so, he gets stuck in a time freeze by the creepy kid from earlier. And in true creepy kid fashion, he says something that doesn't make a damn bit of sense, instead of just explaining what's going on.
It begins.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot for that. That really helps me out. But this kid actually does know Tidus well enough to tell the guy not to cry. Yeah, whenever an 8-year-old kid is telling you not to cry so much, you know you've got some issues, man. And after the time freeze is over, Tidus takes a quick glance around, apparently forgets that any of this even happened, and chases down Auron. This is something you really have to get used to in this game if you want to keep your sanity. Tidus keeps having strange things occurring around him, and either sits there completely oblivious to them, or just never questioning their occurrence. Now, if I may, I submit Exhibit B in my case on Tidus' stupidity. Here we discover that the huge sea creature is named Sin. Auron points Sin out to Tidus, and Tidus looks incredibly shocked to see the thing. Come on! It's a 50-story tall monster floating just above the horizon in a huge sphere of water. How did he miss that? And now that I think about it, didn't that thing just shoot laser beams at him 10 minutes ago while he watched? And as if I needed any more proof at this point, Tidus displays his stunning intellect once again by coming up with a master plan of slapping these monsters to death. Auron shakes his head in shame of the Nimrod and puts a sword in his hand and explains to him the idea of hitting things with the sharp edge of it. Now the game is actually courteous enough to give Tidus a few battle tutorials to get used to this concept, but eventually the two of them get cut off by a giant swarm of monsters. Auron spots this generator, or whatever this thing is supposed to be, and cuts it loose, sending it plummeting into the abyss and exploding, causing a nearby building to fall over. And by the way, something that's always bugged me, this bridge runs very high in the air, but there's not even so much as a handrail. Who the hell designed this town? The game now enters into a typically overly dramatized action sequence where the main characters run across the building as it falls and explodes all over the place. Although what is exploding is never really explained. Maybe it was an explosives warehouse? Anyways, the action sequence ends with Tidus making a dramatically unrealistic leap and clinging to a cliff. Here the two of them start getting sucked into what looks to be the giant alien anus from Evolution. You know, I watched this movie half expecting them to shove a hose up there and start pumping shampoo into the thing. Anyways, the Sin Anus commands Auron saves Tidus so he may consume him. Feed me, Seymour! Yes, I know I screwed that impression up. But for those of you keeping tally at home, this is the second time Tidus has fallen unconscious within the last half hour. Oh man, you guys wouldn't believe the dream I just had. I dreamt that the whole city was destroyed by a giant... Oh shit.